about music from a very young age. As a child, she used to create mixtape for friends. As a teenager, she began attending concerts regularly, and now she has turned that passion into being a volunteer programmer at WYCE, nearly booking over, not making this number up, 3,000 events over the last, or since 2011. Is that 11 years? It's pretty close. 3,000 since 2011. She started her own record label 11 years ago, and if anyone else knows her, you know that's just scratching the surface. So I'm very excited to hear what she has for us today.
Thank you. Don't get too excited. That's what I keep telling people. It's lower your expectations, please. Good morning, everyone. Happy Juneteenth. Happy solstice. Happy almost Cancer season. Any fellow Cancer sons in the house? There's my guy. All right, we're very sensitive and all feeling, so just know that my heart is beating at 200 BPM right now, and I feel all of your energy, so thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot. Also, I want to thank Creative Mornings for the invitation. By a show of hands, how many of you have experienced imposter syndrome, where you might feel like a fraud when you're really awesome? Okay, I'm not alone, and I'm in good company. That's great. So when Creative Mornings reached out and told me that the topic was punk, I immediately felt that pesky inner dialogue telling me, "You're no punk. Why are they asking you to do this?" And then I started to think of what punk really is at its core. And then I started to realize that there are parts of my life that fit into punk. For example, curating events that include historically excluded people, calling my senators when I'm all the way pissed, which is often these days, gardening in my yard, training with Grand Rapids Response to ICE to help my neighbors, volunteering in a people-powered media entity, and then starting my own business, as Derek mentioned, in a male-dominated industry, and so on. There's other examples, and I know all of you here can think of examples from your life that are punk. So along with me, you are also all punk. So to start out, I want everyone to give a middle finger to imposter syndrome. We are all awesome. And don't let that voice tell you that you're not. So I want to start by highlighting this really incredible playlist that was created by DJ Jim Q of Creative Mornings. It's very thorough. It's something to inspire you beyond today's talk. The only thing is it's hosted on Spotify, which, as we know, is not punk, because they have very horrendous royalty practices, which I'm sure you're aware of. But still, be inspired. Maybe there's a new to you artist on that playlist. I also want to share Jim's recommendation for the book Please Kill Me. It's a definitive oral history of the punk movement, and there are some very juicy stories in this book. So if you want to get to know more or do a deeper dive, please check those things out. Most of us think about music and fashion when we think about punk. Is that correct? Am I assuming that correctly? You think punk, you think music, right? You think a look, maybe a style. So we all know that punk music exploded in the mid to late 70s. It was a pushback to the music industry itself. It was a pushback to economic decay and sanitized suburbia. Bands like the Sex Pistols, the Clash, the Dead Kennedys, then later we had Minor Threat and Crass and Bikini Kill. They were all channeling their rage and discontent into a do-it-yourself ethos. And we can't talk about punk without talking about Afro-punk. which Afro-punk emerged as a response to the exclusionary practices that were going on within the punk rock community, right? Early pioneers such as Bad Brains, any Bad Brains band fans in here? 1977, out of Washington, D.C. They played a crucial role in shaping the movement. They challenged racial norms of the genre. They paved the way for future black punk artists, and now the Afro-punk movement is characterized by the contributions of numerous artists and bands who have pushed the boundaries of musical and cultural expression. I was honored to attend an Afro-punk festival with my dear friend Alita some years ago, and let me tell you that the fashion was mesmerizing. Absolutely incredible. It was futuristic, it was awe-inspiring. Just look how beautiful everybody is. Afro-punk's cultural impact extends beyond music. It encompasses fashion, art, and let me highlight this, a strong sense of community, right? The movement has cultivated a distinctive style that merges punk aesthetics along with African influences, and it creates a visual representation of its ethos. So, punk as an ethic. Let's think about that for a minute, because punk was never just about the music or the style. It's an ethic. It's a response. It's a survival tactic. It's not clean, it's not polite, it doesn't wait for permission, which is my favorite part. I tend to work in the do it and ask for permission later sense of getting things done. I wanted to do a quick trivia question, and whoever gets this right can pick whatever they want from the Dizzy Bird merch table, which is actually the bar up there. By the way, I have merch for sale, guys. If you guys want to buy anything, it's over there. Who's in this picture? Anyone know who this is? Who's this gorgeous punk? Nobody's getting free stuff today. Okay, so this is Tina Bell. There you go. The selector. All right, okay. Our DJ Mikey coming through. All right, good. Okay, I already told him I was going to hook him up with some records anyway, so this works out perfectly. Let's see. So, the essence of punk, really, when you get down to what it is, it says that no one is coming to save us, so we need to save each other. Now, that makes my heart sing, because this is kind of how I live in my world and how my heart operates, and I hope it's the same for you. We know punk is not a fashion trend. It's not just a music genre, but it's something deeper, it's urgent, and it's alive. I would like to read an excerpt now from Muchacha Fanzine. That is the logo right there. And we got some Muchacha Fanzine fans. I love it. Hell yeah. So Muchacha Fanzine says, punk is a community that offers solace, connection, care, and unwavering love. A beautiful, life-affirming celebration of identity and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be ground down by a white, supremacist, capitalist system. Punk serves as a radical tool of resistance, fueled by the tenacity to fight against these oppressive systems. Flying your freak flag. Did anybody bring their freak flag today? Just pretend you have one. Flying your freak flag and saying, fuck you, to societal norms enhances our mental health, actually. So if you're not in therapy, be punk. Punk validates our existence. It empowers us to be unapologetically ourselves. It embodies this defiance against those who seek to diminish our spirits, validating our existence, and even saving lives. Punk does save lives, you guys. We'll get to that a little bit later. It's the spark that gets us out of bed each morning and fuels our determination to survive out of pure spite. I loved that part. It's a space where our ecstatic energy thrives in the mosh pit and beyond, despite those who wish to silence us. Muchacha Fanzine, check it out. So, punk has always been anti-authoritarian. not just against the government, but against any system that thrives on apathy. And we often think of punk as angry, loud, and messy, and it is. But underneath, there's something radical and beautiful, and that is community care. I mentioned a few slides ago about punk's influence creating a strong sense of community. Do you remember that? Like 3 minutes ago? Strong sense of community. Because that's where I want to turn our focus for this morning's punk theme. Not about the music, not about the fashion, but about the community care. Caring for each other because it's not trendy or fashionable, but because the system doesn't, and that's punk. Punk has always been anti-authoritarian, not just against the government, but any system that runs on apathy, as I said earlier, so consumerism, racism, homophobia, capitalism, policing and prisons, and also punk is suicide prevention. Anyone have any insight on how punk can be suicide prevention? Why? Community, so you feel supported. Sure. Anyone else? Okay. Self-empowerment. Very good. Absolutely. Like I said earlier, it is life-saving. So, in what ways does the essence of punk answer to all of these evils of the world? We've got mutual aid. We've got direct action, community. I feel like community or punk could be the word of the day, like on Pee-wee's Playhouse. When you say punk or community, everyone goes, ah! By the way, did anyone see Pee-wee as himself? Highly recommend. It's absolutely fantastic, especially for us 80s kids that grew up with Pee-wee. So why do we need to answer, though? Why do we need to answer to these evils? Because those in power are invested in keeping us divided and tired and dependent. And punk rejects that. Punk says we build what we need together. And how do we do that? Again, through mutual aid, zines, free shows, food not bombs, safe spaces for marginalized youth, needle exchanges, community gardens, shout out Jade Rabbit in the front. There's a lot of ways to answer to these evils. Does anyone else have any suggestions on things that we can do to answer to the evils of the world through punk? Educate your kids. Very good. I love that one. Anyone else want to share? Okay, just wait, because during this activity, you're going to have to answer. So all of these answers, punk built these because they needed to, not because it was trendy, but because people were suffering and nobody was doing anything. So people have to take it into their own hands. This is a photo, by the way, of my dear friend Rowana's garden in Detroit. In her yard, it's about 4 times as big as what that picture shows, but I was just really proud of her, so I wanted to include it. She lives on a street that has tons and tons of community gardens and people growing all kinds of stuff and sharing it with each other, and if that's not punk, I don't know what the hell is. So let's zoom in on just a couple of these punk responses, starting with mutual aid, which you may already know. It's a form of voluntary reciprocal exchange of resources and services for mutual benefit. Punk taught us that mutual aid is not the same as charity because charity's top down. Charity says, I have, you don't, let me save you. Whereas mutual aid says, we all have needs and we all have something to give. It's solidarity, not saviorism. So here are some examples of entities that I feel practice mutual aid here locally. I highly recommend checking out any you may not be familiar with. It's obviously not a complete list, but you could get involved by maybe making a monthly donation, or perhaps you take a volunteer shift. You can make a trade. Other ways you could help. How about hosting an artist on tour in your home, or sharing a post Anything you can do to amplify the needs and offerings of crucial services is still punk. Anyone have any additions to this list that I did not include on entities that are practicing mutual aid here in our area? Lotus Brews Community Pantry. Fucking yes, I love it. I didn't know they had a community pantry, but I did mention them later for another reason. All right, cool. Thanks, y'all. So let's talk about accessibility and inclusion. We're going to zoom in on that next, because punk has always been its best when it centralizes the marginalized. Queer punks, disabled punks, BIPOC punks, they actually redefined what the scene looked like and sounded like. So radical punk spaces learned to ask these questions. We're having an event tonight. Can everyone get in the door? Is there a sober space? That's really important. Can someone crash here tonight? Crashing at your place, you guys, is very valuable. Can we make this place safer for everyone? So starting to think about those things, it didn't happen at once, right? It didn't happen always in the beginning. So things like this are community care, not because necessarily the law requires it, but because the punk ethic demands it, right? So you may have seen that asterisk next to accessibility and inclusion, and I did that in the previous slide because punk wasn't always accessible for everyone, right? It's way more accessible today, so let's be honest. It hasn't always lived up to its ideals. It's had problems with gatekeeping, sexism, racism, elitism, scenes that preached anti-authority but couldn't make room for difference. We've all seen it, and not just with punk, right? But the thing about punk is it's also self-critical, and it's listening, albeit eventually. Maybe not as fast as we want it to, but it does, it listens. It evolves, which is super important. And when it does, it gets closer to its core, which is radical interdependence. It's not about purity necessarily, but it's about persistence. For more on this, I have OSA up here. Check out Shotgun Seamstress. It's a zine turned book created for and by Black punks in 2006. This is OSA Ato. OSA presented their zines as a celebration of Blackness, not the defense of Blackness in a suffocatingly white space. And as a side note, this is not a paid ad, but OSA is now doing pottery these days, and I highly recommend checking out their work because it's absolutely gorgeous. Potterybyosa.com. Again, not a paid ad, just something that I really enjoyed. So we live in an era of burnout, right? I'm sure we're all feeling it. We have climate collapse, economic scarcity, rising fascism, surveillance, and a loneliness epidemic. Again, the answer is community care. Bet you didn't think you were going to hear me say that again. That punk house that takes in queer kids, that band that's touring and they're playing shows to raise money for bail funds, the person teaching others how to fix bikes or beat eviction, that's the future, and it's actually right now. It's happening right now. And it might feel small scale, or you might feel like, I have imposter syndrome, I can't do anything to help. But together, collectively, it can be huge. And I just want to reiterate that it's everybody's responsibility to take care of each other. You can't escape it. So I'm going to get real for a minute. Everything else has been real, but I'm going to get a little, real. We're living in a fucked up timeline right now, you guys. We have leaders who have no business leading. We have bombs killing children and families. We have a women's reproductive health crisis. We have families being torn apart by ICE. We have more misinformation now than ever before. We have a disgustingly wide wealth gap. We have folks being prosecuted for sleeping on the streets. We have a multi-billion-dollar for-profit prison system. We have crooked cops. And we're taking away suicide hotlines now. I mean, I could say that all that stuff just happened this week. So there's also public media being attacked, like PBS and NPR. We're banning books. And I could go on for the rest of the afternoon of things like that. And we have some people who would rather not know about any of those things. And if you think you could be one of those people where you're like, I just got to tune it all out, it's too much, I understand that, because that's about taking care of yourself and you're part of the community care. But I urge you to open your eyes and your heart and your mind today if you feel like you've been ignoring these things, because we need you. The punks of the world need you. And if you remember at the beginning, I deemed you all punks, so that's for you too. Inside each of us, there is something that wants to make a demand, to make a difference in this world, and I urge you to lean into that. So many of you have seen this quote or phrase, and I find it to fit perfectly into today's theme. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Rabbi Rami Shapiro is credited with this interpretation from the Talmud. And I like to look at this every once in a while to just remember that there's something I can do, even if I'm just one person. So we know that punk isn't dead. Punk is alive in every act of care that defies capitalism. Every time we choose people over profit, every time we say, you matter, you belong, every time we say, you don't have to go through this alone. Punk is screaming, yes, but it's also listening. It's fierce, yes, but it's also tender. Punk is angry, but it's also hopeful. Because in a world that wants you numb, indifferent, obedient, the most punk thing you can do is give a damn, which I heard Derek say earlier, that Creative Mornings gives a damn, and I thought, hell yeah, that's what I like to hear. So also PBS is punk, you guys, if you didn't know. I saw them put that up, and I said, I got to steal that for Creative Mornings. I love it. PBS is under attack. Public media is under attack. We need these sources to get information. So please support your local chapters of public media. Before we get into the activity, which I'm excited about, I wanted to just put up some places that I feel like are punk in the area. Why do I think these places are punk? Because they're doing shit their own way, and they are amplifying underrepresented voices, and they're leading with their hearts. Any quick shout outs for any other businesses that you feel like are the essence of punk in Grand Rapids? Shout out your own business. It's punk, you guys, to self-promote. Dinderbeck Studios, hell yeah, punk as hell. I love it. James. James Hughes, Triumph Music Academy. Shout out to James, by the way, who is the hardest working person I know at making dreams come true. Can you give it up for James Hughes, please? Always working. I never see that guy just chilling out. He's always working. So there are some places here that are helping kids. There are some places here helping our queer community. People who are supporting Black businesses or art or hip hop or a place where you can get Narcan and clean needles, right? So these things are important, and they're the essence of punk and should be celebrated and supported. Okay, are you guys ready for the activity? You see some pieces of paper there, and you can cut them, you can do whatever you want, but essentially we're gonna collectively create a zine. Is everybody down with this? All right, cool. So the prompt is, I want you to think about what your commitment is to your community, and something that you're either going to do or a service that you're going to provide. Maybe it's writing a letter. Maybe you do a collage or a drawing, a poem, a song, a list. And at the end of our time, we'll leave what we've created on our tables, and I would love for each other to come around and kind of see what we've created. Here are some images to inspire you, just some things that you can think about that I stole from some of my favorite people that I follow on social media, The Reclaimed and Dev the Pineapple. So here are some ideas of things that you can do for your community. And your zine page doesn't have to be perfect, unless you're like me. Yes, it does. But it has to be honest. I really want you to commit to whatever it is that you put on this page, okay? This is an act of resistance and remembrance. And what zines do in punk is they keep voices alive when the system tries to silence them. So let that inspire you as well. Because your commitment matters, and sharing it matters even more. I think when we look at each other's, we can hold each other accountable for what we've created. And during this time when we're creating, I'm hoping we can play a little bit of music, and also we can do some Q&A as long as the questions are easy for me to answer. Okay? All right, have fun. Go to town.